So hello everybody and welcome to this mini workshop, Networking for people who don't like networking. So my name is Iris Köhler. I work as a career coach and trainer, and I hope that today I can share some of my experiences and my advice with networking with you. So first of all, a few words about myself. So I started out as a researcher. So I studied agricultural science. I did a PhD in that field, and then I also did a postdoc. And I think during that time, especially as a doctoral researcher, I really didn't like networking, like going to the conferences and then, at the networking events, talking to people. Yeah, I found this really quite challenging. After the postdoc, I decided to change careers a little bit, so I switched into science management. I became coordinator of a graduate school, so I organized courses, I coached doctoral researchers, I also offered courses, especially on career planning. And here I started to notice that there are also other scientists, young scientists, who really don't enjoy networking. And nowadays, I work as a coach and trainer, especially for young scientists. And the interesting thing is that today I really enjoy networking, and I really try to show people that there is a way to network and actually enjoy it. And so I hope that I can really share some of my advice with you. So why should we network at all? I mean, if we don't enjoy doing it, then why just not stop networking? So the reason is that for the job search, for career planning, networking can really be quite helpful. So this graph here, this is some data from a study where they looked at, so how do people actually get hired? Through which pathways? And as you can see, networking really makes up the biggest part. So about 1/3 of people gets hired through these personal contacts, through recommendation, whereas online job portals and also the company homepage make up a much smaller percentage. So if you're looking for a job, if you don't network, you're just simply missing out on opportunities. Now, throughout my work with young scientists, through the coaching, through the courses, I've come to realize that there are two major misconceptions which lead to people hating networking. And I would like to talk about these two major misconceptions and also give you some ideas on how to deal with this. So the first misconception is this one. So this picture is probably similar to what many people have in mind when they think about what networking is. So misconception number one is networking is having to talk to as many strangers as possible about insignificant things, also called small talk, and exchanging business cards. Now, related with this misconception are certain statements. So often I hear people saying, well, I'm just not made for networking because I'm not a very social person, or I really hate small talk, and I don't want to bother other people. And here, my recommendation is to really respect your personality and to network your way. So what do I mean by respecting your personality and networking your way? Let's take a look at introversion and extroversion. So people fall somewhere along this spectrum from introversion to extroversion. I myself, I'm more on the introverted side. And well, what does this actually mean, introversion and extroversion? Basically, it's really just a preference for different levels of stimulation. So people who are more on the introvert side of the spectrum, they energize when they're on their own. They prefer like to think first and then talk. They're more inner directed. They prefer environments with lower levels of stimulation, and they enjoy one-on-one conversations or being in really small groups, 2 or 3 people. Whereas people who fall more on the extrovert side of the spectrum, they energize when they are with other people and they're in big groups. They really like to talk a lot. They need to talk to think, so to say. They're more outer directed and they just really prefer environments with lots of stimulation. And so the problem with this first misconception of networking is that this kind of networking, it falls more on the extrovert side of the spectrum. So people who are more extroverted, well, for them it's easy to go to such a networking event, to talk to many people, to get to know people, to interact. Just dealing with this situation of meeting many new people and so on. And so I think this is why many people don't like networking, because they think this is networking, this situation that favors more extrovert people. And I think many scientists probably fall more here on the introvert side of the spectrum. So first step is really understanding where do you fall on the spectrum. And I believe that if you take a look at this picture and if you feel like, that's not my favorite situation to be in, then it's quite likely that you're probably also more here on the introvert side of the spectrum, just like myself. Now, what can you do about this? Real networking is not talking to as many people as possible. It's about connecting and relationship building. And connecting and building relationship can be done in many different ways. So you don't need hundreds of contacts in your network, and you don't have to talk to hundreds of people if you go to such a networking event. So it's really quality over quantity. I think that's really the first thing to realize. Networking doesn't mean that you have to know hundreds of people. Active listening is also key for establishing good relationships. And I think this is something that introverts are often quite good at. So you don't need to talk all the time. Let the other person talk, ask them questions, and that's really a good basis for establishing a meaningful relationship. Then recharging and managing your energy is also really important. So if you're more on the introvert side of the spectrum and you are faced with such a more challenging situation with lots of stimulation, then just take a break, maybe get some fresh air for 5 minutes, just disconnect from that situation. Also focus on just a few really meaningful conversations. Don't try to push yourself to talk to 50 people at such an event, and maybe try to arrange one-to-one meetings. If there's somebody you would like to talk to, maybe invite them for a cup of coffee, for example, so that you create situations in which you can really feel comfortable and establish good connections. And some general tips also for getting started. First of all, of course, define a positive why. So why do you want to network? If you don't see why you should do this, if you're not motivated, then it's probably not going to work out. So find a positive why. Maybe it's because you want to change careers. So it would be helpful to know people from a different field, from a company. So try to picture like the benefit that you would get out of throwing yourself into this and getting started with networking. Set goals. So For example, when I was a postdoc, I would go to conferences, and then I would set goals and say, okay, so at this networking event, I want to talk to at least 3 people that I don't know. And then, of course, start with easy conversations, easy situations, like talking to somebody while you're waiting in line to grab a drink, or talking to somebody who you maybe got introduced to through a mutual friend or colleague. But most importantly, and that's my conclusion for this first misconception, so understand that networking is about connecting, it's about building relationships, and how you do this is really up to you. So figure out what works for you. Maybe it's more a one-on-one setting, and maybe not this type of big event. All right, so this was misconception number 1. Now let's take a closer look at misconception number 2, which is illustrated by this picture. And misconception number 2 is that networking is getting a job just because your brother's best buddy owns the company and not because of your qualifications. So related to this misconception are statements like my CV and my credentials, my degrees, and so on, they should speak for themselves. And networking is favoritism. Of course, favoritism, that's a bad thing. And in this case, if you feel like you're not doing, or you're not networking because you think, yeah, it's not honest, then reassess your interpretation of networking, because networking is not favoritism. So real networking for me is connecting and creating relationships. It's about learning about opportunities, job opportunities, and sharing information. Yeah, so that you also pass on information to other people in your network. So it's not just about you profiting, but also you helping others on their way and with their development. It's about interacting with others and also bringing the right people together. Yeah, so maybe you know somebody who's interested in a certain field, and then you know somebody else, and then you could connect these 2 people. So it's bringing people together based on their interests, skills, and competencies. And yeah, summing it up, real networking is being helpful. So it's a positive thing. It's really trying to help people, help your contacts, bring people together, and just exchange information and help others to grow and develop. And as I said, real networking is being helpful. So it's give and take. And there's a really interesting comment that I hear quite often. And it's people saying that they don't want to network, or that they find it really hard to network because they don't want to bother other people. They don't want to get on other people's nerves, or they don't want other people to believe that they are trying to take like advantage of them by asking them questions. And so if you feel like, yeah, that might be me, I also have these thoughts, I would like to ask you to just spend a moment thinking about this question. So if a bachelor student contacted you to learn more about what your research is about and what doing a PhD is like, then how would you react? So my guess is that most likely you would be willing to talk to this person, to share your experience, your experiences, and give this person some advice. Yeah. So basically being helpful. And in general, people like to be helpful, and they also enjoy talking about themselves. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're like, okay, there's this person that is a few steps ahead in their career, and it would be really interesting to talk to this person, to learn from them. Yeah, learn about how did they get there, maybe get some advice, then reach out to them. Chances are that they also enjoy being helpful and that they also enjoy sharing their experiences and helping others. So always think about what would you do if a student approached you, and most likely it's going to be a similar situation if you approach somebody who's already more advanced in their career. So really just give it a try. So conclusion number 2 is real networking is sharing information, it's connecting people and being helpful. So it's a positive thing and not favoritism. Now, to sum it up, some next steps for you, things that you could do. First of all, maybe write down your positive why. So why would you like to network? Really write down a statement saying, I would like to network because I know that for finding a job in industry, it's helpful to have contacts in industry. It's helpful to learn about opportunities and so on. So what's your motivation to network? Learn more about yourself and observe yourself. So we were talking about the introversion, extroversion. So really try to figure out what are situations that really drain your energy? What can you do to re-energize? And what are situations where it's easy for you to connect with people? And then try to maybe create these opportunities, yeah? Invite people, have one-on-one meetings and so on. So really network your way. Reassess your understanding of networking. So really find a positive definition, figure out what does networking mean for you? Do you maybe think networking is favoritism, and is there a way to network that is positive? And then, of course, put it into practice, and when and how are you going to do this? Really set a goal. So when is a good opportunity to get to know new people? How can you reach out to others, and so on? And if you want to learn more about this, there are 2 books that I really recommend. So the first one is by Susan Cain. It's called Quiet: The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. So that's really, really nice book. I really recommend. And then there's another one by Deborah Sack, which is called Networking for People Who Hate Networking, a field guide for introverts, the overwhelmed, and the underconnected. All right, so we're already at the end of this little mini input on networking. I would like to thank you for your attention. So unfortunately, I couldn't be here today live in person, but I will try to answer your questions afterwards in Slack. And also, please feel free to connect with me via LinkedIn so you can get started practicing your networking skills right now. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this little input, and have a nice conference, and feel free to reach out to me. Bye-bye.